Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today's episode, Pathfinder, the role-playing game. Pathfinder is what I like to call Dungeons & Dragons 3.75. What Paizo Publishing did was when they saw that 4.0 was coming, they took a long, hard look at 3.5 and said, you know, this is still a very workable rule set, but there are some things that they want to change. And what this I have here is the Beta Playtest. This is probably one of the world's biggest and most expansive playtests in history. What they've done is they changed D&D a lot. The 3.5 rules, it's recognizable. It's much more recognizable as Dungeons & Dragons than, in my opinion, it's more recognizable than 4.0 is. Now watch, I can feel the flames rising already. But this game, it still has almost all of the 3.5 tropes. The same base classes, the same base races, the alignments are there, but they have really redone a lot. For example, all the races now have a net +2 to their modifiers. So something like, say, an elf will have a +2 to their dexterity, a +2 to their intelligence, and a -2 to the con, thus the net +2. Dwarves will have a +2 to constitution, a +2 to wisdom, but a -2 to charisma. And other, smaller abilities that sort of come along for the ride with that. Like I said, it's recognizable, but it's slightly different. The only fault I can find with the races and the classes, which I'll get to in a second with this, is it's so close that you might get confused and forget to do it this way and do it with regular 3.5. But once you've been doing this a few times, it really makes it much more smooth. They've changed most of the classes, at least in some capacity, to make them, in my opinion, more balanced out. They give each one a little bit of an up in terms of power. Probably the least changed of all of them is the Rogue. The Rogue is pretty much the same. Probably, in my opinion, the coolest change they did was the Sorcerer. Now, in 3.5 and 3.0, for that matter, the Sorcerer, you have something in your bloodline that lets you be able to channel magic, and thus they became sort of the more naturalistic, charisma-based, arcane magic slingers, as opposed to the wizards who have to memorize and an infinite number of spells to memorize a certain number of. The sorcerers have a much more finite list of spells, but they can cast them with much more flexibility. Now, the sorcerer, you actually determine ahead of time what that mystic part of your background was. Was it draconic? Was it abyssal? Was it infernal? Was it just aberrant? You know, are you the descendant of Great Cthulhu? Is it celestial? Is there some true draconic or just power-born or, undead, something in your background that grants you these powers? Wizards get, at all the classes, like I said, with the exception of Rogue, which gets a few, but it's pretty much the same. All the classes get a pretty significant facelift. The classes, the skill sets have been streamlined. There are some new feats. They've reorganized some feats. The spells have all been worked over. One of the nicest things is that all of the serious spellcasters, that is the wizard, the sorcerer, the cleric, the druid, and the bard, all have a number of 0th level spells. Those are now called cantrips if it's arcane, or orisons if they're divine. And instead of having to memorize those, it's a lot more like the sorcerer, where you can just cast a certain number of them so many times a day. The 0th level, they're less potent, so they give you more flexibility there. I really, really like this. This is a nice overhaul of 3.5, fixes some problems. If you want the really good news about this, you can get this as a free PDF download until they officially launch the book sometime in 2009. This is the physical copy of the book itself. It's $25. You can get the PDF download for free at the time of this filming. You can get it for free from it's Paizo.com/Pathfinder. So go, if you like 3.5, you're not sure about 4.0 because there have been so many changes, and you want to play something that's recognizable, go get your hands on this. This is a really nice change. Like I said, it's close enough that you understand it, but there is the danger that you might kind of trip and make a mistake. But once you've looked at it a few times, you won't have that problem. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.